Is it illegal for refugees to travel to the UK?
The problem with people saying it's illegal for refugees to travel is that they have no choice. People who come from countries where there's dictators, they are not going to be issued with passports or visas. People lose documents when their homes are bombed and when they're travelling in emergency circumstances. And because of this, the Refugee Convention actually says you should not penalise a refugee for travelling illegally. They have no choice. So calling a refugee a criminal or saying that they have done something wrong by travelling illegally is grossly unfair and misleading. They have no choice, and that is what they have to do. It is not their fault.
So Claire, what are the legal ways to come to the UK to claim asylum?
That is the crunch of the problem. There are hardly any legal ways for 99% of refugees to come to the UK. It's an anomaly. You have a right to claim asylum in the UK, but to do so you have to be physically present in the UK, and there's no legal way to get there. So that they really are stuck. It's a massive, massive issue. Less than 1% of refugees can come to the UK legally.
So why do refugees cross safe countries?
It's really important to know that the vast majority of refugees don't cross safe countries, but the problem with that is that it means that so many end up staying in countries like Italy or Greece, which are the first countries they come to, and then those countries are overwhelmed, so it's not a good system at all. If all the countries in Europe took a fair share of refugees, it would be so much better for everyone. The main reasons that people do continue to places like the UK are generally because they have family or friends here or other connections to our country, which completely makes sense. If you're going to integrate, then you're more likely to go to a country where you speak the language or where you have friends or family. When terrible things happen, we turn to our family. So it really does make sense that those things are a strong factor in decision making.
So can you tell me a bit about what economic migrants is all about?
Economic migrants is a terrible term that's been badly misused. As we move into the future and more people are affected by climate change, then there are going to be people who are leaving their countries because they are, for example, starving. And that's under the way that your life is at threat, so it's just as bad as it being a threat via war. At the moment, we get told very often that people in Calais are economic migrants, but that's not actually true at the moment. At the moment, all the facts and the data show that the vast majority of people in Calais right now are fleeing war or persecution. So at the moment, that term is being really misused.
So Claire, can I ask you, can the UK afford to help refugees?
I really hate that people think that refugees have to be a cost, because they don't. They don't come here wanting to live in hotels or be on benefits. They come here wanting to work and be part of our society. And if we just let them get jobs, then it's better for them. They can move on with their lives and they end up paying taxes and contributing. So they really don't have to be a cost at all. They can actually be a benefit. Diversity is a very good thing.
And other people say, is the UK actually full?
The UK most certainly is not full. Most people don't know, but 50% of the land in the UK is owned by just 1% of our population, and only 10% of the UK is actually urbanised. There is a lot of land out there that's just owned by rich people, and the rest of the population is not getting access to it. The problem isn't refugees, the problem is wealth disparity. There are very few rich people who own a lot of our country.
And also tell me why we have so many men as refugees.
It's a great question. Why are more of the refugees men than women? And there's a couple of different answers to it. One is some of the reasons why they leave their countries. So in some countries in Africa, for example, young boys will be forced conscripted to be child soldiers. Depending on what stage the war is in, they might get asked to go and fight against people who they don't see as their enemies and they don't want to fight with. The other really big reason is the journeys they come on. They are so incredibly dangerous. Places like Libya, people are captured, tortured, beaten, made to do forced labour. Women can't cross Libya without being raped. The Balkans are horrific. Refugees there get forced to sleep outside in temperatures of -20 with no food. The reality is that women simply would not survive those journeys, and children wouldn't either. So these men, they're not leaving their families behind. They are making incredibly dangerous journeys in order to help and save their families, and ideally get them to Europe through family reunion.
Wow. So tell me, is the UK a soft touch?
I always think that anyone who lives in the UK could never say the UK is a soft touch, because I don't think our government does a good job of looking after its own citizens, never mind refugees, and refugees always come second. There's lots of problems with our NHS, with our benefits for people who live here already, and refugees get less than our own citizens, and I haven't found a single instance of the UK giving better benefits to refugees in other countries. So no, we are most definitely not a soft touch.
So, if they're not a soft touch, why do they all want to come to the UK?
Refugees don't all want to come to the UK. Last year, 93% of refugees in Europe went to other countries. The ones who want to come to the UK are generally people who have family here or friends or other connections, but the vast majority have connections to other countries and want to go there. There's a lot of people in Africa who speak Spanish or French and want to go to those countries. A lot of people see Germany as a good option. It's not true that all refugees want to come to the UK.
And Claire, what would you say to the people who say, well, we should help our own first?
That's not the way it works. What we tend to find is that people who volunteer with us and people who care about refugees are people who care about anyone in need. And we think that's what our government should do as well. We think we either have a society that cares for vulnerable people and looks after them, or we don't. It's as simple as that. It's not a case of looking after one group or another. It's a case of caring about people or not caring about people.
And finally, can I ask you about the big question of the Nationality and Borders Bill?
The Nationality and Borders Bill is a horrible piece of legislation. It's based all around the idea that refugees coming here are doing so illegally, but that's simply not fair. Refugees don't have a choice other than to travel illegally, and that does not stop them being a refugee, because it's not their fault. Being a refugee is about what you're running away from. It's not about how you run away from it. And what the Nationality and Borders Bill does is it penalises them for that, and it stops us giving them proper asylum. It stops us giving them asylum for long enough for them to feel safe, and it criminalises them for doing so they can be put in prison, they can be sent to Rwanda. It is an absolutely horrible piece of legislation that goes against everything we did when we signed the Geneva Convention and when we signed the Refugee Convention in 1956, and I find it absolutely abhorrent.